Trust, and I am head of the Secretariat for Integral Development at the Organization of American States, the OAS, in Washington, D.C. And on behalf of the OAS, I am pleased to welcome you all to this conference on partnerships for financial inclusion in Latin America and the Caribbean, a catalyst for inclusive growth. I think all of us recognize the importance of this particular issue, and I'm reminded that just last year, the World Bank did a study, and they noted that financial inclusion is an important weapon in the toolkit for reducing poverty and boosting shared prosperity. We feel very strongly about that at the OAS in terms of educating people and creating opportunities for financial inclusion. And we see that as key to achieving long-term economic, social, and human development. And in addressing this issue, we felt it was important to create a space for focused dialogue among ministers of social development and ministries of planning, and between government authorities and the financial sector, to facilitate the building of partnerships among key stakeholders that are critical for moving this issue forward. And so together with our partners at the U.S. Department of State, the New York City's for Financial Empowerment Fund, and the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs, we developed some objectives for this meeting. One, to share experiences and lessons learned at the city, national, and hemispheric level on financial inclusion programs, including sharing what has worked and what hasn't, and pinpointing the factors and conditions that have been most critical for the effective design and implementation of financial inclusion programs. We also wanted to jumpstart a cross-sectoral discussion and inclusive dialogue that can inform policy making and program design in order to achieve successful outcomes. And then third, we wanted to identify opportunities for partnerships to take advantage of the focused dialogue that we will have here over the next couple of days between the shapers of policy and a broad array of financial leaders and experts from 23 developed and developing countries in the Americas. And fourth, we wanted to make sure that we got the right people around the table so that this dialogue can be transformed into concrete action. I believe, looking around the room today and having seen the list of participants, that this last one has already been achieved. We have the right set of people. And I think over the next couple of days, we will address the others. So now let me introduce our distinguished speakers who will kick off this event. We have Jonathan Mintz, President and CEO of Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund here in New York City. Julie Menin, the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs. Ambassador Albert Ramdin, Assistant Secretary General of the OAS. And Roberta Jacobson, Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. And first up will be Jonathan Mintz. Jonathan is the founding president and CEO of the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. It's a national nonprofit organization that supports municipal efforts to help low-income families and individuals achieve long-term financial stability. CFE already works with some of the countries represented here in this room today to advance innovative financial empowerment programs at the municipal, state, and national level. Jonathan is one of the key organizers of this event, and I'm pleased to offer him the floor to deliver welcoming remarks. Jonathan.
Thank you so much. I just want to say welcome to the people who are here. We're very excited. We're particularly excited about representatives from the Latin American and Caribbean countries coming to help with this exchange of learning and this search for and really delving into analysis of solutions to problems that we all struggle with together. I also really want to just quickly thank our conference partners, the Organization of American States, Inter-American Social Protection Network. They've been amazing, the U.S. Department of State, and of course New York City's Department of Consumer Affairs and their Office of Financial Empowerment, and their brand new Commissioner Commissioner, Commissioner Menon. We're really very excited. This has been a very committed group who has made this happen through sheer force of excitement. I also want to thank our many New York City partners that are here in the room today. We can never talk about the work that's happening in the city as well as those who are doing it can, and so your willingness to be here to share your actual experiences on the ground is what turns events like these from interesting policy discussions to genuinely practical and innovative solution discussions. I also have to thank CFE Fund's Ishing Sun, our Chief Program Officer, who was a sheer force of nature in putting this together, and I really want to just acknowledge that work. We're really looking forward to a substantive couple of days, and thank you again for being here. Thank you.
Next, I'm pleased to offer the floor to Ms. Julie Menon. Ms. Menon is the newly appointed Commissioner of the New York City Department of Consumer Affairs. She's a former consumer protection lawyer and a former small business owner. We are delighted that she has agreed to join us this early in her tenure and to share her thoughts with us. Ms. Menon will be speaking on behalf of New York City.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for that incredibly kind introduction. And on behalf of Mayor Bill de Blasio, I want to welcome all of you to New York City. And we are so delighted that you are here today. We hope that you shop in the stores and dine at the restaurants. I have to say that, and enjoy everything that New York City has to offer. But most importantly, we are delighted that you are here today because we really want to be able to share with you some experiences that we have had in New York City government, and most importantly, hear from all of you about your experiences and really engage in that dialogue back and forth. As Sherry mentioned, I am the newly appointed Commissioner of Consumer Affairs. I officially start on Monday, so this is my first event, and I can't think of a better event than to be right here today. Our mission at the DCA's Office of Financial Empowerment is to create a fair and vibrant marketplace, and certainly why business education and consumer protection and regulation are traditional methods to really be able to achieve that. We feel that creating financial stability and financial empowerment, particularly to disenfranchised New Yorkers, is just as important. And that is truly what DCA's Office of Financial Empowerment does each and every day. Just last week, the U.S. Department of Treasury released a study done with OFE along with the Corporation for Enterprise Development. The study looked at a pilot program that provided financial counseling and access to safe bank accounts to participants of a transitional work program. The research showed that those who received financial counseling were actually less likely to be late paying bills, and that access to a safe, affordable bank account with direct deposit dramatically increased their bank status. And I want to give you the statistic because I think it's truly incredible, which increased from 1/3 to almost 60%. This is so important for OFE as we really try to reach the approximately 825,000 unbanked New Yorkers. As the first local government initiative in the country that works to educate, empower, and protect individuals and families and create opportunities for New Yorkers with low incomes to achieve greater financial stability, OFE has truly been a pioneer in financial empowerment. And I know that Jonathan Mintz, my predecessor, knows that so well for all the work that he has done in that area. Traditionally, financial empowerment and asset building has been under the purview of the not-for-profit sector. But OFE, as a division of the city's Department of Consumer Affairs, is quite frankly able to have the resources, the regulatory power, and the connections within city government government to convene stakeholders and truly make an impact for low-income New Yorkers throughout the city. Like the pilot with the City Parks Transitional Work Program and other programs such as workforce development, affordable housing, and foreclosure prevention, as well as food poverty, OFE is really integrating financial counseling and education into other social services, which can have a truly lasting impact on financial stability and help to move those residents away from needing the social services again in the future. So what we're really doing is providing wraparound holistic services for New Yorkers. And to ensure that programs are rooted in evidence, OFE closely studies financial marketplace as well as New Yorkers' experiences with them and conducts rigorous data analysis of the services that they offer. OFE then uses these research findings, such as the citywide financial services study, to develop and advocate for improved financial products and services. It was the research on the needs of New Yorkers that led to OFE's flagship program, the Financial Empowerment Centers. We have 30 of these centers throughout New York City and have thousands of New Yorkers coming into them to receive financial services counseling. Since 2008, the centers have helped more than 26,000 New Yorkers reduce their debt by more than $16.1 million and save nearly $2.6 million. Thanks to the work of the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, this model is being replicated across the country. The model is also being replicated and tailored for different contexts. For example, after OFE's research on new immigrant communities in the city found gaps in their access to mainstream, safe financial product services, it led to the creation of a financial services window at the Mexican consulate. And that's really tailored, and we're so delighted to be working with you to the needs of the community. For all of its programs, OFE has standardized the training of financial counselors and provides financial development as well as very vital technical assistance to the Financial Education Network, which is a coalition of government, nonprofit, and financial secure partners who provide financial education for free or at a very low cost. In the financial education and counseling work and in asset building initiatives, OFE promotes realistic approaches to help build financial stability. As the coordinator of the largest network of volunteer income tax assistance sites in the U.S., OFE took the opportunity to pilot a tax time savings program. The program, called Save USA, incentivized savings by providing a 50% match to tax filers who save a portion of their tax refund for 1 year. Last year in New York City, almost 700 tax filers with low incomes saved nearly $668,000 through Save USA, which includes initial savings plus matching funds. These 2013 savers received close to $223,000 in match funds on February 1st. Save USA has now been replicated in several cities through a grant from the Obama administration's Social Innovation Fund, and a similar model is being introduced to be included in the tax code. You will hear so much more about these various programs as well as many others in the next 2 days, and I hope you will leave being inspired. Most importantly, I know we will be inspired by hearing from all of you and the great work that you are doing globally in your individual countries. And I know that your work will certainly help to inform us in our work for many years to come. So thank you so much for having me here today, and we're delighted to be hearing from you.
Thank you, Madam Commissioner. I'm now pleased to welcome Ambassador Albert Ramdeen. Ambassador Ramdeen is Assistant Secretary General of the Organization of American States. He has a long and distinguished career in international relations, diplomacy, and government negotiations. He was elected in 2005 for a first term, and he was unanimously reelected by the member states in 2010 to serve a second 5-year term. Ambassador Ramdeen is known as a strong proponent of private sector engagement, and he will deliver welcoming remarks on behalf of the organization.
Good morning to all. Okay. I was wondering for a moment. Honorable ministers, senators, distinguished vice ministers, our hosts, in a way, Mr. Jonathan Mintz, President and CEO of Cities for Financial Empowerment, and of course, Madam Commissioner of the Department for Consumer Affairs of the City of New York, Ms. Julie Manem, and our partners in this process, Ms. Roberta Jacobson, Secretary of State for the Western Hemisphere, Ambassador Carmen Lomelin, who is just getting some coffee in New York style. Thank you very much to both of you for the leadership and for the partnership which you have built with the Organization of American States and for providing the resources to make all of this happen. Thank you very much. And of course, I hope we continue with that same tradition. Sherry Truss, Executive Secretary of the Department, or the Secretary for Integral Development, distinguished experts and representatives of member states, our colleagues from the Organization of American States, ladies and gentlemen, again, good morning. I'm pleased to join you today as we work together to find new ways to improve in a meaningful way the quality of life of the people of the Americas. This is an issue that is very close to my heart. As you have heard, I'm very committed to strengthening the role of the private sector in development, working with governments, understanding the role in society, and making their contribution not only for the companies, but also for the community as a whole. I believe, therefore, in partnerships. The OAS is about inclusion. Latin America and the Caribbean are at the heart of our development initiatives. And I believe for growth to be sustainable, it must be inclusive. For too long, too many of our people have been surviving or subsisting on the fringes of opportunity, and too many of our people have missed the chance for a better life because of a lack of knowledge, because of lack of opportunity. I believe that it is our duty as stakeholders to address these issues over the next 2 days, not only through the sharing of best practices and experiences that have made a difference, a positive impact, but also to brainstorm on new innovative ways of finding solutions. The subject of partnerships for financial inclusion in Latin America and the Caribbean, a catalyst for inclusive growth, is especially relevant in the context of the new and recent economic developments in the hemisphere. A hemisphere that has seen a growth in middle-income countries, a substantive increase of the middle class, a reasonable economic performance, but still, regretfully, still with the highest levels of income inequality in the world. So therefore, access to financial services and products and asset building have indeed the potential to trigger the so needed social change towards more equality in the Americas. So ladies and gentlemen, I firmly believe that growth of any kind relies on development. And for development to be sustainable, it must rely on cooperation, on partnerships, and effective, understandable, and transparent policies. All stakeholders must understand that the social impact of financial inclusion will be of benefit to all. So let us consider efforts towards financial inclusion not only as good public policy, but as sound investments in the future of our societies. I want to be frank with you this morning, as I always am. Effective, understandable, and transparent policies aren't exactly the first things that come to mind when speaking to the issue of finance. The target audience for financial inclusion, whether the young mother or grandmother in New York or in Panama City, or in Asunción in Paraguay, where we will have the next General Assembly of the organization, to the rural farmer in the Caribbean, if not intimated by perceptions of financial institutions, have no trust in them either. Recent history in the financial sector has left a legacy of mistrust which must be kept in mind, from Ponzi schemes to pension funds collapses and mortgage failures. The vulnerable groups who stand to benefit the most from financial inclusion policies are still wary of the risk. Ladies and gentlemen, let us consider for a moment that ignorance of products, services, and benefits isn't the only issue for vulnerable groups. Lack of trust is a factor as well. I believe It is therefore crucial for us to strengthen our economic frameworks, ensure proper regulation, legislation, transparency, and effective communication if we are to regain this trust and ultimately offer more opportunities to our people. Financial consumer education can only be effective if we believe in the system, if we take ownership of it. For the grandmothers in Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, for the peasant in Guatemala, who had more faith in hiding the money under their mattress rather than in a bank, we must be able to bridge the financial literacy gap and demonstrate the value of regulated financial services. For me, financial literacy must include practical training in budgeting and accounting. It must also make real the concept of credit, loans, interest, and inherent risks. This is why a fundamental part of this discussion must include our financial institutions, and not just policymakers or legislators. In this regard, and I believe given the fact of their overwhelming majority in our societies, special attention should be given to the young people in our societies. Effective financial inclusion has the potential, ladies and gentlemen, to alleviate poverty and inequity, but only when supported by sound planning. The issue is not just about providing access to financial resources, but knowing how to manage them and make the best use of the new opportunities offered. Financial inclusion must be comprehensive, not only in scope, but also in geography, providing services in urban as well as in rural areas. 2 years ago, at the Summit of the Americas in Cartagena, in Colombia, heads of states of this hemisphere gave a mandate to strengthen public-private partnerships and to promote the reduction of poverty and inequality. The facts are that even though we are making strides in poverty alleviation in this hemisphere, the most glaring examples of inequity can still be found here. The only way to making a lasting impact on this reality is to work together to address the common issues we are facing, creating ownership at all levels. And when it comes to financial inclusion, in my view, there are examples of successful models which we can learn from. Right here in New York, as we heard before, I understand financial empowerment centers are at work. I hope we can learn from this model. I congratulate therefore the City of New York for being practical on this issue and prepared to share with some of your experiences to be implemented elsewhere. Solving the problem, ladies and gentlemen, of poverty is not solely a public sector challenge. The cornerstone for success is cooperation. In this regard, allow me to emphasize the role of the Inter-American Social Protection Network, a cooperation mechanism established by OAS member states in 2009 for the exchange of information on successful experiences and knowledge on social protection in the Americas. The network strives to adopt an integrated approach to social protection, which engages both the public and private sector, and advocates for shared responsibility among the various players and groups, promoting the key tenet of inclusion, a necessary ingredient for democracy and for democratic governance. Let me also add that financial inclusion and asset building are at the core of the agenda of this network. So therefore, I urge you all to engage through this tool in future cooperation endeavors on this matter. And as we approach this dialogue and discussion over the next 2 days, let us continue to be mindful of the needs and challenges of the region and the pressing need for tangible, effective, and sustainable solutions. Let us therefore commit to achieve lasting results in our quest towards poverty eradication and equitable opportunities for all. I wish you a very successful conference, and I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Ramdeen. Very well spoken. Finally, we have Roberta Jacobson. Roberta Jacobson, as we all know, is the Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere Affairs, and she was sworn in March 2012. She has occupied various senior positions at the U.S. Department of State, including Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs, with responsibility for regional political and economic issues, management and personnel, and regional security issues. Ms. Jacobson is a recognized policy leader on inter-American issues, and she is passionate about education and social inclusion. And so I'm pleased to welcome Ms. Jacobson to deliver remarks on behalf of the U.S. Department of State. Ms. Jacobson.
Thank you so much, Sherry. And I'm delighted to be here this morning, recognizing that I'm the last of the opening speakers, and I stand between you and the more productive conversations you're going to have today. I'll try and be relatively brief, but I do want to thank the ministers and the vice ministers and the high-level government authorities who are here today for their commitment to this issue. And so much thank sponsors of this event, to Visa and MetLife, MasterCard, AIG, Citibank, the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, and finally thanks so much to JP Morgan Chase for sponsoring the reception later tonight, which will give all of us a well-deserved reward after a tough day. Let me also thank our partners from the Organization of American States, Ambassador Albert Ramdeen, my partner in crime so often, the Inter-American Social Protection Network, the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, and Jonathan Mintz, and Julie Menon from New York City's Department of Consumer Affairs, making this a priority before she even formally begins the job on Monday. We are really so proud to be here with you. One final shout out to Osvaldo Gomez Martinez on my staff, who really has been the motor in a big bureaucracy behind this initiative. I'm very grateful, Osvaldo. Promoting economic prosperity is one of the U.S. government's highest priorities in the Western Hemisphere, and we have made progress. GDP growth is above the world average. There is a growing middle class and significant levels of peace and stability in the hemisphere. Most of this progress results from economic integration. We have more trade agreements in this hemisphere than anywhere else in the world. We are expanding North American cooperation, and launching the Trans-Pacific Partnership remains a top priority, which is nearing conclusion. And that is all great, but that's all on the macro level. Over the next 2 days, you all will talk about those opportunities at the micro level, or as I like to call them, people. To sustain growth and prosperity, we must ensure the benefits of integration reach everyone, particularly those who have been historically marginalized. We support that effort through programs like the Small Business Network of the Americas, La Idea competition, and We Americas for women entrepreneurs. And I have seen firsthand the impact of these efforts. Fostering opportunity and inclusion, particularly financial inclusion, is key, and it therefore made sense to come back to New York, a leader in financial inclusion, as Jonathan and Julie outlined. And for me, it truly is coming home. I don't know if we have any of the participants here right now who will be speaking later from Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn, but my mother began her career teaching in Bedford-Stuyvesant many years ago, and it really is, for me, coming full circle to try and work on these issues again. Financial inclusion is fundamental to grow our economies, achieve the full social safety net, and realize a healthy and vibrant democracy. Citizens must be part of the financial system to be part of the political system. Today, over 1 billion women around the world don't have access to basic financial tools. In Latin America, as elsewhere, the poorest people live farthest from banks, and even when they can get to a bank, they cannot take out a loan, get crop insurance, or even open a savings account. Consumers spend over $78 billion a year in the alternative financial services arenas, often characterized by high and hidden fees and debt traps. If even a portion of that money went to savings, just imagine the benefit to low-income consumers. Governments benefit too, as people who come out of the shadow economy pay their fair share in taxes. This matters greatly in the Western Hemisphere, with some of the lowest tax compliance in the world, precisely because people don't feel their taxes buy them adequate services. In the United States, we're promoting social inclusion in the banking system and broader access to the financial system. Last year, President Obama established the President's Advisory Council on Financial Capability for Young Americans to work through schools, families, and communities to build the financial capability of young people. And recognizing the relationship between financial inclusion and migrant remittances, the U.S. government established an interagency forum on remittances and development. This group shares experiences, knowledge, and ways the U.S. government can drive development through remittances. Stronger consumer protection will encourage consumers' financial well-being by helping individuals navigate through the financial markets, which, as already mentioned, sometimes have complex and opaque products and services. Because we all face variations of the same problem, we share best practice and knowledge across borders. As an example, the U.S. Treasury Department works with the G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion to promote this, and we can do more of that, which is what you do today. This is the latest in the Inter-American Social Protection Network's successful effort to bring together governments, international organizations, NGOs, the private sector, and experienced practitioners to exchange and share information on successful social protection programming in the region. IASPN is an example of true hemispheric cooperation, supported by the region's social development ministers, launched here in New York by Secretary Clinton and the presidents of Chile and Colombia in 2009. Results of the previous IASPN engagements include bilateral technical transfers between social protection authorities from Brazil and Peru, cooperation between Chile and 7 Caribbean countries in implementing innovative social protection programs based on Chile's Puente program in areas such as conditional cash transfers. In addition, there are programs to create distance learning certificate in social protection at the Catholic University of Chile and the University of the West Indies. By addressing this issue, we can help alleviate poverty, promote social stability, and collectively lay the groundwork for increased regional growth and development. But put another way, bringing it down once again from 30,000 feet, it helps people every day achieve their full potential by truly having the full range of economic opportunities. Like most 21st century issues, the public and private sector need to collaborate to effectively address this, and I hope this event will lead to the formation of new concrete partnerships in that area. I look forward to today's discussion and your ideas of how we can partner to add value to the asset bases of households and small businesses in the Americas and change lives every day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roberta. Now, in concluding this opening session on partnerships for financial inclusion, I wish to point out, as Roberta just mentioned, that our very first major initiative at the OIS on social inclusion was launched right here in New York City, the Inter-American Social Protection Network. And since 2009 to today, we have a few things to report, and Roberta mentioned several examples which I think are absolutely key. We have seen certainly a growth across the Americas in terms of the establishment of social development ministries. That has happened. We have seen more and more exchanges among countries. We have seen really a growth in horizontal cooperation that is really quite significant. And we have seen the development of a branded platform at the network where every day we have practitioners from different countries and in different areas engaging and sharing experiences. And so given that experience that we've had with the launch of the Inter-American Social Protection Network, we certainly have great expectations for what might come out of this conference, and we're certainly looking forward to that. Now, before we head off into the next session, I want to take a moment to point out the staff of the OIS who will be facilitating the conference over the next few days. We have our Director for Economic and Social Development, Maryse Robert, who's back there. Maryse. We have Lara, Alexandra, and Aisha around the room someplace. And then absolutely key to all this is Mrs. Kim Osborne, who's right at the back. And she has been a driving force behind this whole event. So please, at any point during the course of this activity over the next couple of days, if you'd like to get more information, if you'd like to have support on anything, reach out To our staff, they're there to help you, and they will be there to accompany you after this event as well on the 30th, and so it doesn't end here. So before we head into the second session, please join me in giving a round of applause to our head table and thanking them for their commitment and for accompanying us this morning. Thank you all. Okay, now it's over to Jonathan, one of our organizers here, who's going to be heading the next panel. So if the panelists for the first session would approach the head table, please, we can get started with the next session right away. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Is that all right? And they'll, and what we'll do is and there's your clicker. How's your trip? Good? All right, I think we're ready to get started with our panel. Thank you again so much for joining us this morning. In this panel discussion, we want to take the opportunity to contextualize the equation of financial insecurity and the roles that government can play and need to play in addressing those issues. With me on the panel. Immediately to my left is Anna Gincherman. Anna is the Chief Product Development Officer of Women's World Banking. She's responsible for identification and rollout of innovative microfinance products that are tailored to the needs of low-income women. She provides, not past tense, you're still doing it, right? The organization's thought leadership on the delivery of gender-sensitive financial products and has extensive experience in individual and rural lending, adult and youth savings, health insurance, and financial education. Sitting next to Anna is Kathy Mann. Kathy is the president and CEO of the National Federation of Community Development Credit Unions. Kathy leads the Federation, which is an association of credit unions that provide safe and responsible financial services to underserved communities. Also, I absolutely have to note that Kathy was previously the Deputy Commissioner for Financial Empowerment at New York City's Department of Consumer Affairs, where she was the founding director of their Office of Financial Empowerment. And she's on my board, so I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm going to be so nice to her. And sitting next to Kathy, who I'm also going to be nice to, is Justine Zinkin. Justine is the CEO of Neighborhood Trust Financial Partners. Justine leads Neighborhood Trust Financial Partners and the Neighborhood Trust Federal Credit Union, which is a leading provider of financial empowerment services and products, and really a key programmatic and training partner, not only for the City of New York for their work here, but also for the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund and our replications across this country. A bit about the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, which I lead. The CFE Fund is leading the national movement here in the United States of integrating financial empowerment programs, services, products into the structures of government, together with funding partners, community partners, thought leaders, and others. We really are helping to explore and support through funding and technical assistance, programs from which we are learning and stealing ideas from and enjoying adaptations of, and most importantly, watching help individual people, as the ambassador said, I love that, we like to call them people, across this country. So that's what we do. So a little bit about financial insecurity and its role in this equation. Just as one example, in our country, the United States is spending almost $300 billion on anti-poverty initiatives. You know what those are. It's housing, it's food, it's workforce development, dozens and dozens of different approaches to alleviating the impact of poverty, both for individuals and also for their communities and their cities. Yet of all of these people we are serving and pushing out these hundreds of billions of dollars, so many of them in this country are financially insecure. 12 million Americans, for example, are not connected to the mainstream banking system. 1 in 5 in this country outside of that system. Nearly 1 in 3 people are relying upon predatory financial products and services in order to meet their daily financial needs. This reality that the people we are investing in are not always in the position to accept that investment is why carving out this field of financial empowerment has been so important and has taken off, I think, so quickly in this country. In thinking not about the primary anti-poverty interventions that are so vexing, but in thinking about the underlying stream of financial insecurity, the field of financial empowerment has wrapped itself around 4 discrete areas: access to safe and affordable banking, savings and other asset building opportunities, professional financial counseling and education, and also targeted consumer financial protections. As we know, it's one thing to build people up in this field. It is also important to make sure that you are addressing the predators that are also very much a part of their reality. This financial empowerment field and its ability within government structures, thanks to partnerships that I mentioned before and that you're going to hear about in a moment, has really led to an array of very exciting, promising, data result-driven programs that are sweeping this country and that we're going to be exploring in more detail and looking for the connections with your countries as well. You heard mention of financial empowerment centers. Financial empowerment centers are not your grandmother's version of financial education. These are professionally delivered one-on-one financial counseling. We always say when somebody is struggling with their finances and they're in trouble, a brochure isn't going to do it. They need to sit down with a professional and really help them work through those programs. And you're going to hear a lot more about financial empowerment centers, not just in terms of what those centers are delivering, but in all the different places that the counseling from those centers has been integrated into other parts of government in order to address that underlying instability that I talked about a moment ago. There are some wonderful savings programs in the array of financial empowerment city partners across the country. Those that have kindergarten accounts in the public schools in San Francisco, tax-based savings programs that you heard Commissioner Menon talk about that are sweeping the country as well. Leveraging the earned income tax credit here in this country, a low-income working tax credit. As well, there are very exciting consumer protection innovations to make sure that people are protected from predatory business schemes. These kinds of programs and the way they're being integrated are not only delivering primary benefits. We can tell you in various programs not just how many people walked in our door, but more importantly, how those people have been helped. How much debt have you reduced? How many people have you connected into bank accounts? How many of those people are maintaining safe balances in those accounts over the years? How many people are building savings? Are they continuing to save in the future? That kind of data-driven result is what we all need to hold ourselves to, not just because it's the highest goal, but because it's possible. And because it's possible, we have to make sure that that's what we're doing in the delivery of our programs. I mentioned earlier that a lot of these programs were being integrated through government in housing programs where part of the financial instability of people being able to pay their rent is a stress point on housing, and workforce development where people's financial insecurity is often stopping them from either getting a job that you're resourcing to help them with or keeping that job once they've gotten it. The list goes on. We have been exploring something called the supervitamin effect. This idea that the host programs are really benefiting from addressing the financial insecurity through real products, through professional counseling, etc. So I'm very excited to move to our panel so that you can hear a little bit more about different sectors' experiences with financial insecurity and the role that it plays in their goals. And I'm going to give each of them 3 questions combined to really get us going, and because I was told I had a half hour less on my panel than we thought. The first is if each of our panelists is going to tell us a little bit about their organization and their background in the field. They're going to tell us what they are seeing in terms of need in this area, where it's showing up, what trends that they're detecting in the work, and then third in this first round of their discussions, a broad overview of what kind of programmatic and other interventions they're seeing on the ground that are working. So I'm going to start right now with Anna Ginterman. Anna?
I don't have to. Oh.
No, I think you're right.
Turn anything. Thank you, Jonathan. I guess I'm the only person on this panel you don't have to be nice to, not being a member of your board. And I guess the only person on this panel, also the person on this panel bringing global perspective, representing a network of 39 institutions around the globe, called Women's World Banking. Oops. And this is, where do I point this? have a nice map to show you.
You can just advance the slide. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Would that press?
Just the arrows here, back and forth.
Okay. Great. So we are one of the largest and the oldest microfinance networks in the world. We have 39 network members around the globe, about 11 members in Latin America in 8 countries. Together, we serve over 19 million clients. 75% of them are women. The range of institutions in our network start with microfinance NGOs to specialized microfinance banks to mainstream commercial banks. So why do we exist? Because we believe there is still an enormous gap in women's financial inclusion around the globe. Only 47% of women are banked versus 55% of men. In developing economies, women are 20% less likely to have a formal account. If you look around the globe again, in OECD countries, according to the Findex data, 89% of women have access to formal bank accounts, while in your region, only 35% women have access to formal banking accounts. It kind of gets worse if you go to Africa, to the Middle East, where the percentage drops to about 12%. So our mandate is to build the business case for financial institutions to serve women clients and invest in those institutions that do so. How do we do that? We always start with developing a deep understanding of women's needs, preferences, and behavioral patterns. These customer insights are the basis for designing products and services that are first piloted in a few geographies and then replicated across the network. We share with what we learn with the network and a broader community. Our work goes beyond product innovation, as we believe that gender diverse institutions with a cadre of strong women leaders are best fit to serve the needs of women clients. If we focus specifically on our product innovation agenda, we focus on developing holistic financial service solutions, including savings, credit, and insurance, tailored to the life cycle needs of low-income women, starting from a very young age. We start with youth banking products to a young adulthood to mature adulthood, et cetera. So a range of solutions, really including everything from health insurance to youth banking to a number of savings and credit products. Just to kind of make it a little bit more tangible for you, I'll go to your region and give you an example of a rural embedding program we are running right now with 3 institutions in Colombia, Paraguay, and Peru. It's a rural lending program, and the focus there is to really help those institutions build a footprint in rural areas with a particular focus on serving low-income women farmers. So when we as always, started with customer research, and what we found, and kind of the key insight, was that women's contribution to economic contribution to households was invisible, and was very interesting because it was kind of invisible at 3 levels, starting from herself. When you ask her, what do you do? Oh, I'm just a housewife, just do some work around the house. And then, of course, when you really look at what she does, you know, she has a number of economic activities that she does not recognize, and contributes very often 30 to 50% of the household income. When you ask her husband what she does, well, she's a housewife, you know, she takes care of the children and of the meals for the house. Again, her economic contribution not recognized. When we talk to loan officers of the institutions that we work with and really look at the financial analysis or business analysis they do in the field, we notice that they often overestimate the income produced by men, and most of the time in rural areas it's crop-based income, and underestimate the contribution of women that comes from small activities like milk production or selling eggs, etc. So what are some of the implications of that invisibility of women's contribution? We saw that they excluded as customers and as customers of these institutions, of course, and it's also in doing a financial analysis that disregards an important part of economic contribution. Is just also creates risks for the organization, credit risk for the organizations that serve them. And so the solution was kind of really at 3 levels. One is looking at the product. Are they really suitable to the type of cash flows and businesses that are run by women, again, which are often smaller, which often can be, and the cash flow is very much based on weekly or monthly basis, which was not suitable for the solutions provided by the institutions which were really considering kind of larger loans with a bullet payment in the end. So looking really at the product design, looking at the outreach and communication strategies of these institutions, we ran 3 very important communication programs really highlighting the contribution and the role of women in their households in Paraguay, and I've seen a number of representatives of Paraguay here. The program was called Ndevale, which is in Guarani means you can. And then the third very important area of work was really create that alignment within the institutions of understanding the importance of serving the segment, understanding their characteristics, understanding how those little businesses work, and making them comfortable going to farms and not just shaking hands with the husbands, but really doing a full business analysis of the household. So the program has been around for 2 years. We've served over 45,000 clients. 48% of them are women. The starting point was less than 20%, so they're slowly kind of evolving to reach our goal to serve more than 50% of women. Again, this is just an example of one of our programs to give you a little bit more kind of a tangible understanding of how we work and what type of areas we address through our interventions. Happy to be here again.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, I just did something wrong. There we go. Okay, perfect. Good morning, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here, and a big thank you to Jonathan Mintz. We're so honored to be a partner with the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund, and also so thankful that he's so nice to us all the time. I am the CEO of Neighborhood Trust Financial Partners. We partner closely with Neighborhood Trust Federal Credit Union. We're based here in New York City. What I'm going to talk to you about today is our financial counseling as well as our financial product design work that's targeted at the working poor here in New York City and now nationally. Our organization has grown out of the credit union movement, which you'll hear more about from Kathy in a moment. But we've always been very focused on the intersection between financial counseling as well as financial product delivery, and the role of trust in not only engaging people but encouraging the right behavior so that individuals can really feel like they're in control of their financial future. A little bit about our history. We were founded as a credit union in Washington Heights, a predominantly Latino immigrant community, one of the largest Dominican communities in the world. And from there, we decided to grow our nonprofit organization, delivering financial counseling with a very particular focus on what is now considered a best practice following the work of Jonathan and Kathy at the city, this sort of super vitamin effect, a real focus on how financial counseling can be most effective when integrated into those institutions that enable financial behavior change to be relevant and meaningful and actionable, and again, where this opportunity to feel like a trusted financial relationship was possible. As you see here, this is Jennifer, one of our financial advisors. We've built a team of over 20 financial advisors who are particularly trained in building this trusted relationship. In engaging individuals who have had, a very poor history with financial services providers, to encourage them to sort of trust them and take action with their finances. What is really particularly unique about our model is that we're able to blend the 501c3 nonprofit with the credit union so that our focus can be on deploying our financial advisors to work closely with our clients and using those experiences to identify unmet demand, sort of missed opportunity to design new financial products and sort of incubate those products at our own credit union and then consider them for replication and scale. What you see here is our definition of success. We're really focused on providing our clients with a productive banking relationship and a plan and the trusted relationship that we believe is so pivotal to long-term success. We then focus on success as the ability for our clients to improve their balance sheets in the form of reduced debt and savings, as well as improving their credit profiles, as well as with a focus on improved self-efficacy. Again, that sense of control over one's financial future, a sort of shift from short-term crisis thinking to long-term planning. And our results are quite impressive. We're very focused on debt reduction, and as you can see here, close to half of our clients are able to reduce their consumer debt by over $3,000 and significantly improve their credit score. What I want to speak about today in response to Jonathan's question are a few of the select initiatives that we are focusing on today so that we can take our work and really look at the potential for scale. Jonathan reflected on the hundreds of billions of dollars being invested in anti-poverty initiatives. And the opposite side of that coin is the number we often discuss at work, the $89 billion fringe banking market here in the United States. So in the United States, there's $89 billion of revenue generated from a range of predatory banking products, primarily on sort of the debt as well as the credit side of the equation. We constantly study this number and study the activity in this market because we're very interested in the market opportunity, the opportunity to create a more level playing field, a more healthy financial services marketplace, such that our work isn't charity, but is truly a market opportunity, a way for both the consumer and the provider to benefit, a way to ensure a more sustainable solution. So what I'm going to profile today briefly are our three strategies. We're focused on, again, this sort of integration model, delivery channels, and we've launched a business called the Employer Solution, which is about bringing our services into the workplace. And then I'm going to profile a product called the Trust Card, which is a debt reduction credit card, as well as highlighting our work, again, with Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund around sort of scaling our financial counseling model. So here, I'll start with the Trust Card. So what we've found is when we talk with our clients about their concerns, debt has emerged as sort of the #1 issue. So oftentimes our clients will share with us very particular long-term goals and a very particular commitment to savings. But when we analyze their financial situation, consumer debt is oftentimes the primary barrier to a savings program. And while we're very encouraging of our clients to strive for that savings goal, we really believe that we have to first tackle the sort of pernicious debt that is sitting on their balance sheets. We also believe, again, that this is an area where there's a real market opportunity. The profit margins are so huge in the credit card industry, and part of the reason for the profit is not just because there's such demand, but because the techniques that the credit card industry uses to encourage people to actually extend the life of that debt. For example, suggesting that people only make a minimum payment each month. So we find time and again when we speak to our clients about their debt, this commitment to do the right thing, a perhaps ability to do the right thing and make their payments, and a sense that they are following the rules because they are making that minimum payment. And yet the life of the loan continues, and a significant percentage of the interest expense they're paying is actually unnecessary. So we have designed the Trust Card, which requires our clients to work again with a financial counselor, build a financial plan, identify what is actually an affordable monthly payment. They make a specific commitment strategy to get out of debt in partnership with their financial advisor, and then they consolidate and refinance their debt onto our Trust Card at a more affordable interest rate, 12 to 15%. And then we make the management of that card as simple and transparent as possible. The client has to make the same monthly payment each month. There's no fine print, there's no variable rates, there's no sort of changing payment. It's just the same monthly payment every month and a clear visual representation of how that monthly payment, which fits with their budget, will enable them to get out of debt. Now, a twist on this card is that as they make those monthly payments and reduce their principal, we reward that debt reduction with access to affordable credit, but only as a small fraction of the total debt they originally had. Because again, our focus is on getting someone out of debt and keeping them out of debt and giving them the discipline so that they have credit in terms of emergencies, but they are not actually given more credit than they need or even want. While this product is in the relatively early days, the results are quite astonishing. So of all the cards we have, they've been seasoned around 14 months. We have no charge-offs. The card is reducing people's debt on an annual basis by over $1,000, and the card is profitable for our credit union. So for us, this is an example of the opportunity to design a system, a service that is win-win for all of the players involved. So the consumer is getting out of debt, and over time not only improving their balance sheet, but improving their credit profile. The financial institution is generating a profit, and perhaps more than that, they're generating that goodwill and trust that is so critical to engaging and retaining a very large, underserved market. And the broader sort of society and economy is benefiting immensely if you imagine all of this consumer debt being reduced and these new customers being in a better position to access a new array of financial products and services and asset building opportunities. The employer solution is sort of in a similar vein, a recognition that, again, there is sort of unmet opportunity for generating earned revenue and also encouraging people to improve their financial futures. What we do with the employer solution is take the model that we've always delivered, where we're embedding financial counseling in services that people are already familiar with, like housing, nonprofits, government agencies. but instead bringing the services to the workplace. So this is our client Angel at Five Guys, which is a local burger chain. And Angel received our services, again, not at a nonprofit, not because she proactively sought out our services in an office when in crisis, but because when she came to work one day, our financial counselor, Tyler, was waiting there for her and worked with her before her shift, after her shift, and more importantly, worked with her alongside her employer. We've engaged employers in being part of the solution. We've engaged employers in the opportunity to signal to their employees that when they pay those employees a relatively low wage, they care about those employees. They're eager to help their employees' wages go as far as possible. What we found again is that there's a remarkable opportunity to encourage employers and the business community to be part of the solution, again, not as charity, but as sort of smart business. So Five Guys has found that their employees were way more financially distressed than they imagined. So the Five Guys employees we worked with, over half of them had debt in collections. 75% of them were not banked. Even though direct deposit was available at Five Guys, very few were availing themselves of this service. And as a result of working with us, we've been able to encourage the entire workforce to become more productively banked, reduce their debt, enroll in direct deposit, and sort of become more in control of their wages and achieve their financial goals. And what's exciting about this is the employees overall said that they were not only less stressed and more motivated to manage their money more effectively, but they had a more positive feeling both towards their job and their employer, that they really believed that their employer's investment in their financial future was a sign that the workplace was supporting them, and therefore they were eager to do an even better job. This is an example of an innovation that we're working on today so that we can enable each paycheck to become less about tax compliance and more about financial goal achievement. So our vision is that at the workplace in America over the next few years, when people get paid, that moment of getting that pay stub and getting those wages is an opportunity to sort of celebrate goal achievement. So instead of getting paid and finding out that you earned $500 and your take-home pay is $400. Instead, what you're finding out is, hey, today when I got paid, I had $250 going to pay down my debt. And actually, year to date, my wages have enabled me to almost become debt-free. And perhaps if I achieve my goal, my employer will reward me in the form of different types of incentives. So we look at this opportunity as a way to sort of transform the workplace and the payday experience so that, again, wages are translated into financial goals and employers are considered to be part of the solution. Again, as a sort of meeting a market need and generating revenue as well. And here's a profile of our work on a daily basis. And this is where I want to comment on our great work with the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund. What we found in our work as we designed the trust card or focus on the employer solution is that at the end of the day, what really matters to our clients there are sort of two themes that have emerged. So, one theme is this concept of a trusted relationship. No matter how well designed a product is, no matter how available you make something, no client is going to engage in that product or use it appropriately unless they actually believe that product is truly intended to help them, unless they believe that the provider of that product is to be trusted. And this concept of a trusted relationship, I think, is at the core of where our field needs to be headed. How do we, as a financial empowerment field, develop the techniques and the relationships and the opportunities to be where people already feel like they have a trusted relationship so that financial services are truly accessible and truly meaningful and people really take action with them. We are now working in a variety of cities. We're working in a variety of cities through the Cities for Financial Empowerment Fund to encourage other municipalities to take up this model, to really not only sort of train social services providers and government agencies to embed financial empowerment in their work, but to really examine how our services can be integrated with services people are already receiving and already trust, so that it's not just a well-designed product, but a product that is truly meaningful and truly actionable. We believe that there's great opportunity in the United States and elsewhere to not only sort of scale a financial empowerment agenda, but truly transform these services as not standalone, but part of people's daily lives, so that financial services are no longer scary, intimidating, or predatory, but truly sort of a fabric of people's daily lives and part of trusted institutions they're already familiar with. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kathy Mann, and I'm the President and CEO of the National Federation of Community Development Credit Unions. The Federation provides capital, technical assistance, and capacity building services, research, and advocacy for credit unions that have a primary mission of serving low-income people, helping low-income people and communities to save, to use credit productively, and to build assets. We work with more than 200 credit unions throughout 46 states in the United States to implement innovative products, services, and programs to meet the financial needs of their communities in a safe and responsible manner. As Jonathan had mentioned, I had previously worked with him on forming the New York City Office of Financial Empowerment. And in October of 2012, when the Federation's former CEO, Cliff Rosenthal, stepped down to take on an exciting assignment with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau in Washington, I was really thrilled at the opportunity to, although I hated to leave government and I hated to leave the fantastic work of OFE, it seemed the perfect moment to sort of step away and think about, you know, at the end of the day, when we spend all of this effort in trying to help people navigate the financial system and make the right choices that are going to help them move forward financially, we have to be also working on making sure when they're ready to make those right choices are available. And so for me, leaving the financial empowerment world to step over to the credit union world was the sort of perfect opposite side of the coin on working on the same problem, but in a different way. And so I just sort of urge all of you who are thinking about strategies that you're going to employ around financial inclusion and financial empowerment, that it's really important to be thinking about the engagement of the financial services industry, and to be thinking about the partners whose missions are most aligned with your own. And when I think about community development credit unions, we are financial cooperatives. It means that our institutions are member-owned and controlled. The members of the institutions do well when the members do well. That means that our mission is aligned with the success of each and every member. We only do well when our members are doing well. And so that's a really important component. Our mission depends upon the financial empowerment of each and every person using our services. I'm going to talk quickly about some of the needs in the area, and then a couple of things we're doing, and I know we want to get to some Q&A. It's very timely for me to be at this event because we are coming to the beginning point of some of the analysis that we're doing on a research effort that has been funded by the Ford Foundation, where we've been looking at very low-income members of credit unions. And we've been sort of distinguishing between, you know, oftentimes we think about low and moderate income people. What we did is we sort of dug into the low-income populations that are using our member institutions, and we went and did a series of interviews with folks who were kind of really operating at the margins. They had incomes in the United States of less than $25,000. They had inconsistent employment. They had multiple sources of employment, but that most of those interviewed didn't have consistent jobs throughout the course of the year. And what we are finding from these interviews is that people's financial situations are extremely precarious in these levels. This is a part of our population that's growing. A lot of the employment situations of families who used to have two jobs earning income into the household now are finding that they're patching together 7 or 8 different sources of income with very sporadic employment. And folks are, so they're really living at the margin. Their financial situation is extremely precarious, and they're sort of operating in a constant series of in and out of financial crisis, right? So we've often thought about structuring our products and services around, helping people where all of a sudden a financial crisis happens and they don't know what to do about it. Well, what we're finding is many households who are living at some of our lowest income levels, financial crisis is happening repeatedly throughout the year. So they're moving in and out of it because the flows of incomes and outflows of their households are barely enabling them to make ends meet. So they proceed along, barely making ends meet. A crisis happens. It might be temporary job loss. It might be a medical emergency. They have to work their way out of the crisis. They have to start rebuilding their financial lives. Oftentimes that cycle starts repeating again. What do we find in terms of their relationship with the credit unions that they're working with? The major finding is that people oftentimes don't think about going to the credit union for financial products. And that's a very eye-opening thing for us. A lot of times we're thinking, like, what's the next big product we got to come up with that's going to really help people, that silver bullet product? More and more and more as we went through these interviews, we were hearing relationships. I go to the credit union because they're going to tell me what I need to do to get beyond this latest crisis. So it's that navigation, that relationship, that trust building. The population that we were interviewing, that we work with very closely, don't have a lot of confidence, and we explored really this whole question about trust and financial institutions. And some of the issues around trust, there's a very limited amount of trust that people have with financial institutions. Some of that has to do with they've had bad experiences in the past with financial institutions, but a lot of it has to do with a lack of confidence, of not knowing whether or not they're going to get themselves into trouble with a product they don't quite understand. So that's one of the things that we've been really keeping in mind when we're thinking about product and service development, that we really have to recognize that the more complicated we make a product, the more threatening or frightening it can be to the very population we're most trying to reach. And so that's been a really illuminating part of what we're trying to do, which is let's try to think about simplifying and building upon what people value most when they come into the credit unions. And again, I'll just emphasize, it's that trust, it's that navigation, it's knowing somebody who's going to have your best interests and help you kind of move to the next step. So we've been thinking a lot in terms of when we think about products and services for a population, again, a population that's very fragile financially, they're going to need sort of products and services that help them move along a pathway. So first and foremost, what we've been taking that to mean is we want to build out more and more this relationship and this navigation piece within credit unions. So we are very much embarking on and infusing financial counseling and coaching right into the credit unions. Justine's credit union up in Washington Heights is a model, and that's a model we're looking to replicate throughout the country, with credit unions being able to infuse financial counseling as a formal part of their business, to know that this is an important and valued service that their customers or their members are looking for. We're also looking at very sort of simple bundling of products. So I think the trust card was an example of a really creative way of helping people with the current crisis that they're in, but also helping them build out of that. We also are working with a number of credit unions around a product we call Borrow and Save. And these are for folks who have been using payday lenders and going for emergency, short-term, small dollar loans. What we do with Borrow and Save is we keep it very simple. It's a small dollar loan. It might be a $500 loan. It has a savings component to it. So as you're borrowing, you're also paying into your savings account. We can talk more about that if people are interested. Finally, we're trying to keep financial transactions cheap, easy and responsible and affordable. So there's a lot of work that we can talk about in the Q&A around some of the opportunities that are growing out of some of the work that the Federal Reserve Bank in Atlanta is doing around international remittances and wire transfers, and being able to link financial institutions directly up to each other to make wire transfers a lot cheaper and more affordable, and also using that as an opportunity to be linking family members in the home countries up to financial institutions as well. There's a lot of really exciting work there. And I'll just sort of lastly say we're also doing a lot of work with credit unions in building out some financing, some small dollar loans that help immigrants who are in this country and who are ready to begin processes of legalization to be able to get small dollar loans to be able to help them get through those processes. So more and more with some of the legalization procedures, there's higher and higher fees being implemented, and that has been a barrier to many people who choose not to go for citizenship, who choose not to go to renew their work permit, and because the fees are getting more and more costly. So we're doing some loan products that'll help people to be able to continue with that legalization process. So I'm going to step aside and let us get to the Q&A. Thank you.
So I want to open this up to questions from the audience, and I'm not sure if we have any microphones, but maybe you could just speak quite loudly.
I'm Kevin Bagel from MasterCard. Just a question. Thank you for great presentations. Talked about financial access, talked about the products. What's the role of education? I didn't hear you all talk much about what are you doing in terms of providing targeted educational materials. Because trust really comes from education. I mean, it's closing the gap between demand versus supply, right? So you folks emphasize on the supply side of things.
It's an interesting observation, in talking about local and global and replicable programs. We jump into cards, we jump into systems, and where does education fall in that role? Anna, would you like to start?
I think we...
Can you hear? Oh, there you go.
Kind of put it in the same bucket as of kind of our areas of practice with marketing and communication. So we integrate financial education at every touch point with the customer. And we've experimented with many different modules of financial education, started with kind of, let's say, classic classroom-based education when we talk about youth banking and when we partner with schools. So integrating financial education curriculum into delivered through classroom education. We also train our sales force to be financial advisors, so loan officers or sales force for deposit mobilization, to have short sessions in the field and be able to give that advice that was mentioned by two other speakers. We've also, and there are City Foundation is here that partners with us to co-produce a few soap operas around the world. So that's another, using mass media. So we co-produce a soap opera in the Dominican Republic, Mexico, and sponsored 8 episodes of very popular soap opera in Kenya, basically using very popular characters that are kind of, very, very familiar, to, in the case of Kenya, 8 million viewers, that come to your living room once a week to talk, to teach them of how to use credit cards, on how kind of some basics of financial education. Don't let your PIN number, don't share your PIN number with your friends and family, kind of like basic messages of financial education delivered through edutainment. So kind of we've done the whole range of financial education options and seen lots of lots of interesting results.
Justine, I just want to ask if you want to jump in. I wonder whether in your organization you have seen education become replaced with counseling and product connection, or whether or not it still has its own place.
Right, thank you, Jonathan. So education always will have a role in that people do want to feel like they understand the products that we're offering and the tools we're offering. But I do think that we have replaced financial education as the intervention and financial knowledge change as the measurement of success, with a more sort of individualized, sort of goal-oriented approach where we look at success as, is somebody actually changing their behavior, and are they actually changing their financial status? And we don't necessarily believe that general education is going to encourage that behavior change. Instead, what we found is that behavior change comes from a very sort of individualized plan that is guided by specific actions an individual can take. So when a financial counselor sits down with a client, there is very definitely a role for education, for providing information, but that's really more of a sort of ancillary component to the overall relationship building that we're doing, right? Where we're very focused on what is their financial situation, where is their financial stress, what are specific immediate actions they can take to start seeing results. And what we find is when we provide immediate action items and our clients start to see results from that advice, that's when the trusted relationship starts to develop, and then the opportunity for sort of accelerated action and results sort of takes hold. So I guess what I would say is education is definitely a part of success, but we're very much replacing education with a more sort of action-oriented and behavior-oriented approach. Do you want to add, Kathy?
Yeah, I'll just say, in some of the interviews we've been doing as part of this study, I mean, some folks have had mixed experiences with traditional financial education classwork. I don't know if anybody in the room's ever done financial education classes or workshops or courses, but oftentimes you'll find a room full of people who are, you know, sort of moderately engaged until you get to the end when they're like, now I want to talk about my problem, right? So a lot of us learn by doing, and I think one of the things that we've taken to heart is people learn best when they're when they've got the right support system to help them make the right choices, and then they learn from the benefits of those choices. And so I do think the financial counseling and coaching component is ultimately a much more productive one for folks, helping them navigate those systems. You know, but there's no one size fits all. You know, I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities, and I do think that particularly when you're thinking about putting together a series of strategies. I mean, one of the things I think we all keep iterating is this idea of holistic approaches. There isn't a silver bullet. There's not going to be one, you know, brilliant product that changes everybody's ability to engage with the financial system. There's not going to be a great class that's going to be replicated. There's not going to be a single counselor that's going to change the world. But I feel like if we're kind of constantly recognizing that what we need to do is have systems that are helping people move forward, using good products, getting the counseling and advice that they need, you know, learning more as they're pursuing it. I feel like we should be building out all of that together.
Thank you. We had a question in the back.
Yes. My name is Glennis Long. I'm with Young America's Business Trust, a nonprofit inside the OAS. And I was interested, I'm thinking for the young people, and by that I mean 18 to 35. Two questions come out, and they're completely related. One is, the lady was talking about like Five Guys, and I was wondering, what are the employer incentives that can help especially the employee? And the same thing sort of connected with that is, what about the community banks? I hear about like a global bank. I hear, and I think it's wonderful what you're doing with the credit unions, but do you have a connection with the community banks?
So I will talk about our experience with Five Guys and other employers. So what we found is very interesting right from the start of our research and discussions with employers. The receptivity to what we're trying to do has been quite astonishing. So what employers have shared with us is, especially if they employ low-wage workers, but they care about the retention of those workers, and they care about the ability for those workers to deliver a quality sort of customer service. That's usually where we found the best fit. They already understand that financial distress impacts those metrics a lot. So the employers we've spoke to will tell us, we believe that when our workers are financially distressed, and we know that they are, it impacts their ability to deliver a quality service to our customers, but also that level of insecurity, the sort of constant crises that are cropping up, impacts their ability to keep that job. So they really do see that there's a return on investment in helping their workers manage each paycheck better and becoming more financially secure. The other piece I will add to that is what employers have told us is that they are also often put in a position of providing that service as best they can, even though they don't feel like they're very well positioned to do so. So employers will tell us that without any sort of established program, they already are constantly receiving inquiries from their employees around, can I borrow against my next paycheck? Can I borrow against my 401k? I'm about to lose my apartment. Can you help me in some way? Can you lend me money? Can you give me advice? What do I do with the debt collectors who are calling me? So the employers are already experiencing this demand and really don't believe they're well equipped or sort of best positioned to have that type of financial counseling relationship with their employees. So they're very eager to offer that service, but offer that service through a more sort of independent and mission-driven provider. And they do believe it contributes to strengthening their bottom line.
Anna, I wonder if you could jump in on the second part of the question, which was about your institution's experience with connecting with community banks and credit unions, I assume, yeah.
And I can also maybe add to the first question that kind of in our global work, they're partnering more and more with corporations that have factories around the world, and now partnering with the organization called BSR, Business for Social Responsibility, that just developed a financial education curriculum that they are basically implementing through a number of factories with factory workers in all over the world, Mexico, India, Kenya, etc. And now kind of what they're noticing, the missing link is that call to action, is that partnership with the financial institution, and that's where we come in and help them out in establishing that kind of more of a holistic system, integrating that kind of financial education into more complete financial solution with a call to action. So in terms of community banks, I think there's probably over 50% of financial services delivered to low-income population is delivered through a methodology called solidarity lending and village banking that's been pioneered 30, 40 years ago, and we have a number of members, especially in Africa, using the methodology, and it's really, again, based on the idea of community banks where 30 to 50 to 100 people come together, save together, and then provide small loans to each other, and then financial institutions or our partners really help them organize those systems and professionalize those structures so that would allow for delivery of a wider range of financial services.
So it's another form of partnership beyond the traditional banking partnership, the support. partnership.
Exactly, and what you see in many countries, that kind of more mainstream commercial banks that are not ready to go that deeply, let's say, into rural areas or those type of income segments, they partner with those type of structures and provide wholesale facilities. So that's another way of...
We have time for one more question. Yes.
Thank you. Tatiana Rincon from Fundación Capital. I'm thinking about scale and cost. Since counseling is very specific, it could be expensive. So I would like to ask you about that. And also, how do you train the coaches? Because, I mean, my question is because it's like how you can guarantee the quality of the counseling provided.
Kathy, do you want to start with that one?
I'd love to, because that is scale and sustainability. Those are the keys, and then I'm sure Justine will have a lot around training. You know, interestingly enough, in the credit union movement, there has been a proliferation of a range of folks throughout the credit union who get trained in financial counseling. So what we find across, there's about 7,000 credit unions in the United States. You know, on a global level with the cooperatives, I mean, it's many, many more, tens of thousands. There are oftentimes multiple touch points in the credit union of folks who've gotten some training in financial counseling. They may be member service reps or customer service reps. They might be tellers. They might be loan officers. They might be collectors. One of the things that we're beginning to do, so this has really been an activity that has been ongoing, and our research really showed that, you know, that idea of people saying the relationship with the credit union and my trust in these relationships, they're going to help me navigate, really comes from that sort of grounding with a lot of folks whose day jobs are doing something else are actually have been infusing financial counseling in their engagement with members all throughout. I think one of the challenges we have is that we don't track that activity, so we don't actually know what impact we're having, and we also don't necessarily know, you know, it's a challenge to then determine at what part of the credit union is financial counseling yielding the best results. And so in a lot of ways, your point is very well taken, which is to scale it up from the ground up and try to create sort of a really, you know, big financial counseling infrastructure is going to be quite costly. But because so many folks within the credit unions are already trained in these roles, and there's a number of really fabulous training programs. Our Credit Union National Association runs a training program. There's numerous ones in community colleges. CFE Fund is building out a robust one. Justine's group does a lot of training. But what I would say is what's most important is how do we track who's successful and what kinds of results we're getting. So one of the things that we're really excited about as we think about formalizing that financial counseling role within the credit unions is not so much building in new activities as much as trying to capture and track some of the data about where people are going. Ideally, what we'll be doing is making that business case to the institution, to the board, to the leadership, that actually this investment is really yielding because it's making people better borrowers, we're reducing delinquencies, we're getting them better on track and better payers because they've gone and engaged with counseling, they're taking out better, bigger loans, they're able to move to the next level of borrowing in the institution. So that's all sort of where we're going. It's been an activity that has been quite prevalent. I think we're now just trying to figure out how do we put some, you know, some net around it and start figuring out what we're good at and where it's yielding the best results.
I also just want to take real quickly the last word. I know we have to stop in a moment. I think that this question of scale and quality control go together, and it's particularly interesting in a room full of people thinking about government. We have always believed that the value of the pressure on government for scale is that it forces quality control. That if you really own this problem, it's not enough to step forward with a couple of small programs or with general programs where you can't measure the impact. And that's why I think that what you've been hearing from this panel is a real emphasis on data and the role that data plays in measuring success to identify markets. And it's that kind of equation that I think generates the capital that you need to be able to say, this is not extra money that we need to figure out somehow how to spend, but this is a quality ingredient of a program that's going to save us money or going to build more of a market. And it's that equation that I think governments, increasingly local government in this country, is finding in order to make these investments. So I want to thank you for that question. I want to thank our panel.
Can I just...
Yes,
I just
please,
wanted
sure.
to add one point.
Sure.
I'm sorry that we probably have not covered is the role of technology, and it's really, I mean, that's what we've been, experimenting in different parts of the world, reinforcing the messages. Those financial education goals or your financial goals can be reinforced through SMSs that are sent to you weekly. How far you're from achieving this goal and so on. And we've seen a lot talking about tracking data.
And scale.
We've seen a lot of great results,
right.
By kind of just, again, using those simple kind of mobile-based solutions, and then we know, again, the percentage of the population that have access to mobile phones is much greater than the percentage of population having access to bank accounts. So it's kind of using those technological solutions, and that's really the new exciting area for us in the last couple of years.
Thank you so much for your attention. I want to thank the panel for their thoughts. And should we call up the next panel, or do we have a break? Yes? We have a break. Terrific. Take a few minutes, and then we'll see you back here. Sorry.
She runs a, she runs our youth